Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a television movie from 1968. That movie is They Saved Hitler's Brain. Now, this movie's got a rather interesting story behind it. This movie started out life in 1963 as a movie called The Madmen of Mandorus. And when the owners of that film wanted to put it out on television, they found out it was too short to fit in a 2-hour time slot with, commercials. So they added an extra 20 minutes of padding, they gave it a brand new title, and they threw it out into the world of television, and, and the, rest is history. I have no idea if this thing is going to be any good for two reasons. Number one, I've never seen the Madmen of Mandorus, so I really don't know if they picked a good source film to start with. And two, you guys happen to know my stance on padding, and the fact that this thing intentionally added 20 minutes of padding, that's probably a bad thing right from the word go. So I could very easily be walking into a shitstorm of epic proportions here. But the only way for me to find out is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out They Saved Hitler's Brain. Well, guys, I can now tell you that you can totally tell the difference between the padding and the original film. One big thing. The sound mix is drastically different. When I say that, I mean that the padding's sound mix absolutely sucks. Now we have this drastic change where you can actually hear the actors talk. I think this is probably from the fucking original. You'd think, being filmed years and years later, the padding would be better with sound, but I guess I was wrong. Wow, so this chase started out, it looked to be about noon, now it looks to be about midnight. This guy was able to drive for roughly 12 hours while trying to stay conscious from a shot to the shoulder. Okay, that makes absolutely zero fucking sense, but I guess I'm just gonna have to let that one fly now, aren't I? You know, guys, I am really interested in listening to this guy's story. Do you want to know what's kind of sort of setting me off, though? The fact that they had to overlay World War II stock footage over him, and it's just incredibly distracting. Well, plus also the guy's acting is completely destroying the story he is trying to tell, but still, though, the stock footage alone just kind of destroyed it, man, you know what I mean? You know, guys, I would really love to know what the fuck is being said here, except for whatever reason, the audio on this DVD's got this weird, like, thrumming, purring sound, which is almost drowning out a whole lot of the dialogue, and it sort of comes and fucking goes. It's incredibly distracting. You'd almost think that they would have cleaned up something, that when they put out the DVD, but guess not. Hey, wait a sec. Alright, now this here's the second time I've had a chance to see Hitler's chamber where they keep his head stored. There's this giant lit up fucking swastika above it. The swastika's backwards. It's not the Nazi swastika. Which means that the Nazis who are here in this country are so stupid that they can't even get their primary symbol right. And do it in a big, garish, lit-up way to honestly make it look even more fucked up and foolish. God, that seriously is just both fucking retarded and funny. I kinda like it. Wow. I never really thought, guys, in this entire movie I'd get to see Hitler's face melt off. That's fucking awesome. Really creepy, but fucking awesome, dude. Shit, yeah. Well, guys, that was They Saved Hitler's Brain. Let me shut that off. Okay. I guess before I get into the movie proper, I guess I should talk about that padding I talked about at the very start of the movie. Because I mentioned that they had to add about 20 minutes of shit to this. And first of all, it is essentially just the first 20 or 25 minutes of the movie. And it stands out. It sticks out like a sore thumb, partially because apparently between 1963, when the original film was made, and around 1967, 1968, when they filmed the fucking padding, the fashions changed dramatically. So we have essentially we have what almost look like two totally different films. And really, it is kind of disfucking jointing. Not only that, but also the filler, the padding. It really doesn't serve any real purpose. It barely fucking sets up what is going on in the story proper. We are introduced to a pair of characters who are killed off within fucking 20 minutes. They literally serve no purpose at all. It would probably have been better off, guys, if they had just filled the extra 20 minutes needed with just fucking establishing shots of the friggin' country of Mandorus. I mean, it would have at least, well, it would have made the film, it would have slowed the pace down of the film horrendously, but it also wouldn't have added in unnecessary characters and other pointless, needless bullshit. So not only do we have these extra characters and this extra shit that goes nowhere and serves no purpose and adds nothing to the story itself, but also the picture quality is grainier, which is shocking considering the fact it was filmed after the bulk of this film was made. The sound quality is worse, which tells me that the people who worked on the padding for this had never heard of a fucking boom mic or didn't know how to use one correctly. It is just whole hosts of problems, including a car chase at the very end of all of that extra filler, where it just like that, it jumps from day to night. I kind of made a snarky comment about that. And then we dive into the Madman of Mandorus footage, where we have a cleaner picture, we have almost perfect sound except for one scene. I'm going to discuss that at length when I start talking about the sound mix. It really is similar. It is similar to that car chase. It really is like night and day. It is really kind of sad. Now, why don't we talk about the bulk of this? Let's talk about the actual film, shall we? The writing for this is okay. The fucking premise is decent. All right, the premise is nothing. Well, actually, I believe that this was one of the first films that was talking about how Hitler like smuggled out his brain or his head or himself out of Germany to go to South America, the Caribbean, whatever, in order to try to resurrect the Third Reich and this and that and so on and so forth. So at least it was breaking somewhat new ground there when the Madmen of Mandorus came out in '63. When they opted to reuse the footage here, it was probably already a little bit tired, but I'm not totally sure on that. So do not quote me there. However, though, where the premise is okay, it is completely just kneecapped by just absolutely horrific dialogue, terrible acting. I will get to all of the acting and everything a bit later, but just the actual story. The story itself is so poorly written, it's not even funny. Because the whole thing is centering around, like, nerve gas, which they continue to call G gas and never tell us what the fuck the G stands for. It has to do with the Nazis wanting this, G gas, this nerve gas, in order to gas the country, in order to gas the entire country of Mandorus, or at least the capital city, in order to turn it into the new Nazi base of operations. Which makes no sense because they also talk about how they've got like Nazi cells in a bunch of other cities, including a few in the U.S., which makes me wonder if they've also got like G-gas there too, so they can gas out those cities and have little Nazi bases all over the U.S., Asia, and South America, because those were the locations they were pointing on on the map. I don't know, and they never really completely explain it. And I also don't know why you'd have bases all over the world when Hitler's head is in this one little, like, dinky-ass country in the fucking, Caribbean. You'd think maybe send him out to, like, Washington and then gas Washington. I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking a bit too much into that, but ultimately, guys, the premise here is strong, but the story is ridiculously weak, and it does not support it. That's pretty much like the best I can say. Our dialogue here is shallow and flat. There really is just nothing good here, and the acting really doesn't help any. I'm going to tell you right now. We have a whole bunch of Nazis in this film. Not a single one has a German accent. Hitler has one line, not fucking counting a flashback where he is very obviously just screaming in gibberish. And his line is, "Mach schnell, mach schnell." I'm going to tell you guys right now, I just put more accent into saying it there than the actor did playing Hitler in that scene. Okay? And he also is the one who puts the most effort into adding a German accent to his voice, which means there's that very slight hint. Every other Nazi has no German accent to speak of, even when they're trying to speak in German. Because there apparently are a couple of them in a bar. You can barely hear them, but they apparently are speaking in German. I didn't hear a single I didn't hear much of what they were saying, but I certainly didn't hear a German accent to go with the German language. It really did sound like someone who had never spoken the language and was just fed a couple of lines. So yeah, we have that. So we have Germans with no accent. We have Hitler with no accent, which is funny as hell. I'm wondering how in the hell is it that it is very heavily implied that they only cut off Hitler's head and saved it, and yet when he's in his jar, occasionally you can see his shoulders too. I don't know why. That, though, is more for fucking special effects. The acting here ranges from horribly flat to almost Plan 9 levels of ham, which is certainly funny, and it does sort of add to the watchability of this. I will get to the watchability factor of this when I get towards the end. But guys, the acting here, absolutely none of it is good in the fucking classical sense. I'm gonna say that right now. The acting here is absolute shit, unless you're looking for something to fucking completely laugh at. All right, so the acting's bad. Camera work is okay. The camera work's really solid. Sound mix. The sound mix is good for most of the film, except for one scene. And I don't know if it was the master which they used when they were making the DVD. I don't know if it was just that this was an issue with every single copy, but when they're talking to the president of Mandoras, about 90% of that scene, you hear this very loud, like, thrumming, like, rattling, purring sound almost, and it drowns out most of the dialogue. And I had to listen incredibly close to fully understand exactly what the hell they were talking about, and about the only thing I could pull out of it was that they have Nazi splinter groups in various cities in Asia, North America, and South America. And there also was a mention of, I believe he said Casablanca, which is funny because he was pointing at Brazil when he said it. And there's a whole lot of things wrong with that, but I'm not going to get into it. But that one scene is rendered almost unwatchable because of this loud, thrumming, rattling noise which goes right over the dialogue, and it just makes it horrible. However, though, barring that one scene, the sound mix in the rest of the primary story and the rest of the actual film is good. Well, again, minus the filler, but I'm not talking about that shit anymore. It really, guys, is sort of odd that we have this one scene which has a lot of, I'm going to assume, rather plot-heavy dialogue, and it's ruined because of this bizarre, like, clicking, rattling noise. Again, I don't know how to really describe it. Over the fucking dialogue, so you can barely hear it. It's very, very odd. So, anyway, special effects. let's talk about special effects, shall we? Well, the only real special effect is Hitler's head, and it's normally just a plastic head in a plastic tube, which is supposed to look like a jar. Occasionally you'll get close-ups and you will see the actor's head inside of a plastic cylinder, and barring his one line, like every other close-up is just him twitching, which tells me that Hitler probably had some form of Parkinson's when they chopped off his head and they threw it into this jar, because he really does just sit there and he just twitches, nothing else. He will just kind of smile and he's still twitching. It's very odd. And then, of course, at the very end, his, head melts. The head is just, like plastic. You can totally tell, but it still looks really cool. Now for one thing I don't normally talk about, and I have to hit this nail again. The set design. Inside of Hitler's chamber, where it's Hitler's head on top of this big fucking, like, machine, which apparently serves no purpose, because I kind of sort of thought that it was there to keep his head alive, until they took his head off and it was still, and he spends maybe all of, like, 45 seconds of the film with his head on top of this friggin' device, and then they sort of take it off and then he's totally good. But there's this giant lit up swastika above it, and the swastika's backwards. All right, I'm gonna tell you guys right now. Hitler took a friggin' East Asian symbol, which was the swastika, and he took it and he flipped it and turned it for his own use. And instead of using that, which, mind you, they have Nazi armbands. Officers are wearing the armband, which has the way that the German swastika looked. And they still fucked it up on the wall and made a big light-up fucking display of it. And I would have loved it if there would have been a scene where Hitler is just sitting in his little jar, looks up, and just basically says the German, equivalent of, they fucked it up. I gave them one symbol and they couldn't do it right. Who the hell did I fucking hire? Just something funny like that, because fuck, it would have worked perfectly. Because I saw it and I knew damn well that there was something wrong about it, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it until I saw it the second time. And it still kind of bugs me. And while I'm on the subject of sets, everything else looks kind of sort of cheap, which well, I mean, a 60s film with a rather low budget, I'm really not expecting much. So barring the giant fucked up swastika, everything else can get a pass. So when all is said and done, am I able to recommend they saved Hitler's brain? No and yes. I'm going to say this right now. If you are a fan of bad movies, and I'm talking like Plan 9, Reefer Madness, Monos, and Overdrawn at the Memory Bank bad, you are going to absolutely adore this thing. If you're not into cheesy cinema, then your best bet is to avoid this thing, because there's nothing here for you. You have been warned. Now, They Saved Hitler's Brain came off of the Amazon wishlist. The guy who sent it in is someone who sent in a lot of films, and he is Robert, and Robert has asked me to not do a shout out outside of just saying his name, and as always, I am going to respect that. And Robert, dude, thank you. I'm going to tell you right now, dude, I put this thing on the wish list solely because of the title, and I did not know about this film's rather fucked up history until you sent it in, and then I decided to do a little bit of research on it. So, honestly, I'm kind of happy with this thing, because this thing here, guys, is the very, very sort of cheese that I always talk about when I talk about looking for a movie to watch if you and your friends are going to have a bad movie night. This thing here is one of the perfect candidates for that. However, like I said, if you aren't into legendarily bad films, you're probably going to want to avoid that one. So yes, guys, with that we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.